Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Dr. Michelle Jorgensen. She's a holistic dentist, author of 5 books, a holistic health advocate, board certified naturopath, and therapeutic nutritional counselor. She's also the founder of Living Well with Dr. Michelle. I have to stop you. I love that. It rhymes. When I
Exactly.
came across it, I'm like, this sounds like music to me. And then, so yes, founder of Living Well with Dr. Michelle, teaching essential life skills with a charitable arm, the Living Well Today Foundation, supporting those in need. This is my brief introduction to Michelle, but the full bio will be at the end of the podcast notes, will be at the end of the interview. But question that I love asking all my guests from the get-go for some reason is how to describe who you are in this very moment. Who is Michelle?
I think that above all, I'm a teacher. I love to teach. I love to share the things that I learn. I'm an avid reader and I'm very curious.
Yes.
So I just like to learn about things, just details about things that maybe other people wouldn't care about. And I like to put all the pieces together. Why does this matter? Why does this little piece of information matter?
Right.
What could it do for somebody? How could it improve their life? How could it help them live well? And then that's what I like to share. So, I you mentioned in our conversation before we started that my books are very diverse and there's so many different ways we could go with this
Yeah.
conversation, and I think that that's
Yes.
why. It's because I'm just very curious about everything. Everything just interests me, and I just like to find out and then give you listeners the things that are most important for you to know to be able to help you live well.
Yes. What's not to love about that? Being open and curious. That's the way we learn, isn't it, Michelle? Being open. That's one of the things that I always talk about here because the main topic is really healing. So health, wellness, healing, spirituality, and we cannot really get to any of those goals per se without being open and being curious and trying something new. So I'm always saying that. I think that might be the fundamental step to learning or to change one's life. Does it resonate with you, this idea of being open and curious first?
For sure, because then if you're closed to new information, if you're closed to spirit, the spiritual gifts and information that you receive, if you're closed to other ideas, you can't progress. The
Right.
only way you can move forward toward anything is if you can be open enough to bring in more to then allow you to take the next step.
Right. What inspired you to become a holistic dentist and then doing all this work, beautiful work that you're doing today? What is the main, let's say, purpose, motivation behind it all?
Yeah, well, I didn't start off on this path at all. So I'm a general dentist. My father is as well. We were practicing together and things were going along fine. And my father's in his 70s. He still practices actually for a time. And I thought that that's just what would happen for me too. And we were doing nothing, health based. Obviously, we were trying to improve people's health through dentistry, but I didn't really know what that meant at the time. And I started getting sick.
Yeah.
And so I started doing what everybody does, started going to doctors and getting tests and x-rays and everything and no answers. And my biggest issues were my gut. My gut was just trashed. I couldn't eat anything, sometimes not even water. I mean, it was really bad. I couldn't remember, and I've always had a really good memory. That's kind of part of the learning thing is I can remember things that I study, and I couldn't remember a patient's name from room to room. So it was it was a drastic change that I could see something really had happened. And the biggest one was that my hands were so numb, so painfully numb that I couldn't actually hold instruments anymore. So I got to the point where I couldn't do dentistry. You can't do dentistry if you can't actually do the physical work. And so I put my practice for sale. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Right.
And I started just reaching out to all different practitioners, bunch of different mentors and people. And finally, somebody said, "Have you looked into mercury poisoning?" I said, "Well, I don't really know what you're talking about. I knew that silver fillings had mercury in them, but I didn't have any in my mouth." And I said, "Well, I don't have any fillings." And they said, "It's not the fillings you have. It's the ones you've been drilling out for the last 10 years with no protection and breathing in all the vapor as you have drilled these fillings out." So I got tested, and that's what it was, mercury poisoning, off the charts. So I had to figure out, could I keep doing my job and not get more mercury in? Because the doctor said, well, you can't get it out if you keep putting it in. We have to like fix this problem.
Right.
So I found that there were ways. I didn't even know that there were protocol to do this in a way that the dentist wouldn't get ill, that the patient wouldn't get ill during this removal procedure. And that pretty much just catapulted to me to where I am now. Because again, that curiosity, I said, well, if this was in my profession and made me sick and I knew nothing about it, what else is there in dentistry that I know nothing about that could literally be life changing, life altering?
Right.
I've got to figure this out. So I just started seeking, and thankfully, doctors and things that I was now referring to would say, well, have you looked into this? Have you looked into this? And I hadn't heard of any of these things. So I started looking into them, bringing them into practice. And the practice has really evolved as patients have asked for things. They've said, well, is there a connection here? Let me go figure it out. Let me go see if there is. It's really been an evolution, and certainly nowhere that I was inspired to start or just wanted to do. It's been what came because of my illness, and then turning that into, what do I want other people to know so that they never have to get sick like me?
Yes. How wonderful, though, to hear that. You see, that's what I call wisdom. Because knowledge, all of us have access to, and we can gather, so much knowledge, especially today's world. But the application of knowledge, it takes really courage, and I would call that wisdom, being able to apply what we know. And then even more beautiful is to pass that on, try to help others to understand what you have understood, what you have learned. So that's truly beautiful, though. And it's an inspiring story that I see so many people that I interview here kind of coming from that place. It's truly
Yeah.
beautiful to me. So thank you, Michelle, for being where you are today. Thanks to your curiosity and courage, I have to say. So the mercury issue, did you healed from it completely?
I don't know if I'll ever completely heal, honestly, especially because I still am in dentistry. And so even walking through my building, I'll get more, potentially more mercury.
Yeah.
We're very, very careful in our office. We've even tried to divert the HVAC system, everything. But I think that there's still but mercury is one of those things that does not detox quickly or easily. So it took years to really start to feel like, my brain's back again,
Yeah.
and I still get numbness sometimes. I still get numbness on and off, and I have to figure out, okay, I better get my liver working again a little bit better. Something's clogging, let's move it out. And so I'm always constantly having to stay on top of it. But I think it's always a constant reminder to me to be careful and to be cautious with what we're doing with patients as well.
Right. Yes. So it goes back to the idea of holism, right? Holistic living, holistic knowledge. That's amazing. I talked to you off record. I mentioned about this. It's so clear to me that everything is connected. That we see parts, but if one part is affected, the whole will be affected. So, but we tend not to see it that way for some reason, and I wonder why. What is your take on that?
Well, it's interesting because I was trained very much in a specialization mindset. Dentistry was a specialty college. I mean, we went to an entirely different school. We
Right.
we
Yeah.
learned anatomy, we learned all these things. We learned head to toe anatomy, but we didn't talk about it much after we then got into the studies about the mouth, and everything. All of our education was devoted to these, 32 teeth. That's all we really learned much about. And I was trained in that model. And as I've moved outside of that model, I can look back and I can say, why do we operate that way? Why is that the case? And I've studied some too, the history, and you mentioned some of the history as well, but really in the early 1900s,
Mm.
specialization came to be. That's where you moved from the country doctor who had his little black bag that would come to your house and fix whatever ailed you. Science started coming out and saying, well, no, we need to research these things. We need to really have this established. Does this really work? And as that started, they started creating medical schools. And as that then grew, they started diversifying and branching off into all these different specializations. And one of those specializations is dentistry. And so people become today even become experts at one area of the body. But unfortunately, what that does is it gives a very narrow focus. And I was very narrow focused.
Right.
We talked a little bit in dentistry about how gum disease could could influence diabetes. That was really honestly as much as we ever got kind of this cross thought going. And now as I step back, I'm like, wow, we are really shooting ourselves in the foot as practitioners to not say, first of all, what could the mouth influence the rest, but what could the rest influence the mouth? Like if I see cavities,
Yes.
not understanding that this could be a gut health issue. So now as a dentist, I'm just fighting cavities. I'm just, a firefighter trying to put out these cavities. But I never say, well, what's the match that's starting the fire? you know? So that's really the background. And I was very much in it. That's how I was trained.
Yes. How do you define health these days? What is to be a healthy person?
Yeah, so I actually just wrote a book, and the book will be released May of 2025. So it's coming out not very soon, but it's amazing how slow the process is.
Right.
And in the
Right.
book, I talk a lot about wellness and the difference between health and wellness. And there is a difference, I believe. So health is very focused on just the way your body's working. And I talk about how if you can figure out how to make one cell work correctly, you can help every single cell work correctly because there's the same principles for all of them. But that's really focused on health. Wellness, I believe, is all of the other things you do outside of the physical body. So it's how, the things do you eat and what do you drink and how do you know what do you breathe and what do you wear and what do that's the wellness piece. So I believe health is actually just kind of half of the answer. I believe this wellness side, which is really the way you live, and that's why everything that I do is titled Living Well,
Right.
because it's a living process, not just I'm going to take this pill to make one cell better. No, I'm actually going to live in a way that supports my entire body, every cell to be well. So I think it's combined. There's things that we do for our bodies, but there's things we have to live to be able to make that wellness come together.
Right. The concept of wellness and well-being, are they connected? Are they one and the same from your perspective, Michelle? Or do you separate well-being from wellness as well?
It's a great question. It seems like well-being is less about the physical body. Typically, if I just think about that, how have I heard that termed?
Yeah.
More like, your well-being meaning, just how are you moving through life? Whereas wellness, I think, is the lifestyle and physical things you're doing to improve your physical body. So I think they're one and the same, perhaps, but maybe used differently in different contexts.
Yeah. So being well, yeah, body, mind, spirit per se. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but that's how it really resonates with me when I think about well-being. Another initial question for you, Michelle, I really want to get to your books too, is how do you see the idea of success these days? What is to be successful to you?
It's interesting because I've always believed that money is a result of caring for people. Money is not the goal.
Yeah.
Money is not the place that we're trying to reach. It's just simply a result if you provide care and if you help someone. And so my overarching goal in my life is to help more people. So if I'm helping more people, then I'm going to have success.
Mm,
Typically, there will be enough for me to provide for my family because of those efforts. But I don't focus on the money. I don't focus on any of that. That's not what success looks like for me. Success is helping more people.
yes.
If I'm able to help more people, then I'm a success. And that's really what I focus on and work toward.
Yes. Especially, I would say children, young adults, they still kind of living from their old understanding, the old model of what success is. Money and fame, perhaps, looking incredibly beautiful on the outside. So that's redefining success is such a important, I think, an important aspect of living well, isn't it? I see that from you, like what are you doing? It's showing that clearly. Another question that I have for you, the initial questions, that's really a little bit outside of the box, and I hope you're okay with that. If if there was one thing that would hold you strong per se and at peace, even if you lost your health, what would that be, Michelle?
Definitely family. If my family if they are living well, then I'm living well.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really look at closely. And that's beyond just, I have 4 children and a husband, and, it's even beyond that. My family is my team, both at my dental practice, but also at Living Well. And,
Yeah.
that's all my family. And if all of those people that are in my circle are living well, then that helps me to live well too.
Yeah. Wow. Let's talk about your book. So the titles, they caught my attention. They're so tasty, I have to say, for people who are curious. So I have you, Healthy Mouth, Healthy You. Of course, that relates directly to what you do. And then Self Sufficient Living, Real Food for Real Families, 100 Days for the Garden, Be Prepared, Nice Scared. And you also have an ebook that's on your website. So, Living Well with Dr. Michelle, Making Bread the Natural Way. That one caught my attention too. I don't eat bread anymore, but that I'll have to look into that. So maybe, who knows, I'll go back to it. So
Yeah.
talk to me for a moment, perhaps a brief description of all your titles, if you could, Michelle. I know we still have a lot of time.
Yeah. So the first book was Healthy Mouth, Healthy You. And it was interesting because that book was years in the making. It was a compilation of what I was doing in practice. So as I changed the way that I was practicing dentistry, people said, you really ought to write a book about this. This is very unique. There's so much research that backs this that could help, with your platform. And so it took years for me to write that. And I thought nobody would read it. But I was very surprised. There were actually a lot of people interested in dentistry. I had no idea,
Right.
because it is so impactful and there are so many things that are influenced by that dental health. So that was the first book. And I thought, wow, I actually quite enjoy writing. And the rest were simply things that I have been learning and teaching myself. And I thought, well, I know how to write a book now. Let's do this. So 2020 hit and everything else that came along with 2020. And well, it was actually just slightly before 2020. So I jumped the gun a little and wrote the Be Prepared, Not Scared book, basically saying, okay, if we're going to have some sort of mass emergency,
Mm,
what do? How do you make it so that you can be confident no matter what happens, that you have yourself taken care of, yourself, your family, maybe your local community. You are able to really care for yourself. So that was the Be Prepared book. And that one's gone on to be a book, like a book club for so many people. They'll buy 25 of those books and read it all together and go through the 12-step program to be able to get prepared. And again, I was a little shocked at how much interest there was in that. So that was fun. And then the piggyback to that was the self-sufficient living, because I thought, and that one actually was written right in the middle of COVID. I didn't, my dental practice had to close, and I don't do very good with sitting around. Like, that's not something I'm really good at. So I thought, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book. I wrote a book instead of sitting around during COVID. So I wrote the self-sufficient living book because I thought, okay, this has been a shock to all of us. All of a sudden, our food supply stopped. Like, I couldn't find butter.
right.
I couldn't find
Right.
butter anywhere. And I thought, this is crazy talk. Like, that fast, our world could change. So I already live on, we call it Living Well Homestead here. And so I have a huge garden, a medicinal garden, as well as a vegetable garden. We have an orchard. I have chickens. I'm always already very self-sufficient, but I realized there were a lot of things that if the store just closed, if the shelves were empty, how could I provide them for myself? So this was my education. How do I actually make my own cleaning products? How do I make my own beauty care products? How can I save money on everything?
Right.
And so this was a deep dive for me. And I thought, well, if I'm going to learn it, I might as well teach it. So that was the self-sufficient living book, is how can you literally provide for yourself? Even if you don't live on, an acre of ground like I do, even if you live in an apartment in New York City, what can you do? And this topic covers that. And then 100 Days from the Garden is basically 100 days of eating out of my garden. I guess I thought one summer I said, I'm going to document, how do we do this? Literally every single day, this is all we did, was just ate out of the garden. So that was that. And then the Real Food for Real Families course is one of my my loves. I'm a huge believer that the idea of the family dinner or the home dinner has gone to the wayside. And as a result, we've seen increases in obesity, increases in poor health, and all sorts of things, top to bottom, from old to young. And I believe dinner at home is the remedy for so much of what ails us.
Mm,
So this book is literally, how can you give yourself and your family meals that will feed you in 30 minutes or less? How do you actually do that? So that's what the Real Food for Real Families book is just simply the way we do it. We do it at my house. How do I get home from work, a long day of work, seeing patients, and within 30 minutes have a meal that feeds us very well on the table in 30 minutes. So that's what that book is. So it's literally living with me. And what do I do at home? And let's turn it into a book.
Yes, so we were talking about the products, what you do, it's just so incredible. Knowing that everything affects everything else, everything is connected. So I came across the products on your website, Living Well with Dr. Michelle. And the first one that really called my attention is the bamboo toothbrush. So talk to me about what are the benefits of using that kind of toothbrush versus plastic toothbrushes, and also the all natural bamboo charcoal dental floss. That's another one that really, really called my attention. And the probiotic deodorant. I have to add that in there.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about all three of those. So, the first thing with bamboo is I just don't love the idea of plastic. People talk a lot about plastic bottles and plastic bags, but they don't talk about plastic toothbrushes. And how many are there? Well, we're supposed to change out our toothbrush every 3 months. So if you figure every person times, a new one every 3 months, that's a lot. And they never degrade in the landfills. So this is filling up landfills of plastic. And I don't like to do that. The other thing is everything you put in your mouth is going to end up in your body, no matter what. So if you're putting BPA filled plastics in your mouth, it's going to end up in your body, no questions. So what I thought is let's just do away with it. So it's a bamboo handle with BPA free bristles on the toothbrush. It's all biodegradable 100%. So when it goes in the landfill, it's not going to stay forever, which makes me feel good about the environment, but it makes you feel good about your body too, because these are things your body can get rid of if you get any of it, versus it's just staying in and clogging up and making things not work right. The same with the floss. So it's bamboo charcoal, which actually has a couple of benefits. Bamboo or charcoal itself is very absorbent. So when you put floss between your teeth, the goal is to clean what's there, but we want whatever is there to pick up the toxins, the plaque, the bugs, whatever's in between there and pull it out, right?
Yeah.
Charcoal's very absorbent. So it's going to actually cling to that charcoal floss and it's going to carry it out of those areas easier. So it's very good for that. And the other thing about floss that people don't often realize is that the kinds that go really easily between your teeth are actually made of Teflon. That's the same material that they talk about in nonstick pans. It's not good for you. It's what's called a forever chemical, meaning it never leaves your body. And it gets into the cells and it creates all sorts of effects in your cells. So we don't want to be using these forever chemicals in anything that we're going to be putting in our mouth. That includes your dental floss. So no more Teflon dental floss. Let's use bamboo charcoal version. The third thing you asked about was the probiotic deodorant. And this is honestly one of my very favorite products because the concept behind this is that sweat does not smell. Okay, it doesn't smell on its own. Sweat is actually non-smelly. There's no scent to it whatsoever. But when it mixes with bacteria, that's when it starts to smell. So it's the bacteria that are the stinky part. So what we said is let's balance the bacteria. Wherever you're using deodorant, usually the armpit areas, let's put good bacteria there that are not going to smell bad. Let's not get the smelly kind. And let's give enough good ones that the smelly ones are killed off and leave. Wow. So we use the probiotic deodorant. And what we found in doing this is adding probiotics to the pit areas is that you don't smell. You may still sweat because we don't want we don't actually want the antiperspirants. Those are aluminum based. They just plug up your sweat glands. Well, why is that problematic?
Right.
Because the sweat glands is what dumps all the toxins. If you plug them up, the toxins back up and it's like a backed up sewer system in your body. You can't actually get rid of the gunk. It just keeps swimming around and you get sicker and sicker. So we want to sweat. We just don't want to stink when we do it. So that's what this does is it enables you to not smell. And people are using this and just absolutely blown away. They're like, literally, I'm giving this to my 14-year-old son that nothing has worked for and he doesn't stink at all anymore. I can hike for 8 hours and there's no smell whatsoever. You really got to give it a try because honestly, it's pretty miraculous. There's no stink anymore.
Yeah. And a question that comes to mind, because I use probiotic every day. I take
Sure.
probiotics, prebiotic, the combination of both, and then also the mouth probiotic. They have that too. So I have some in my house that I don't do it every day, but once in a while I do. So it doesn't really. So it goes inside the body, but doesn't really affect those areas.
Yep. There's a whole separate skin microbiome.
Wow.
There's a incredible diversity of bacteria living on our skin.
Right.
So we need to make sure that the ones living there are not the ones that smell bad.
That is amazing. Gosh, how many people know that? Not too many. I gotta
Not
put
very
that on
many.
yeah. I gotta have that on the first page of my website. We gotta know these things. And then you have something called the remineralization kit. So that also caught my attention. That was like one of the things that I have here for a reason. So what is that, and how does it work? And I see you have many products with that label of
Yep.
remineralization. So I would
Yep.
love to hear more about it.
So it just gets back to what causes a cavity. And everybody says, well, a cavity is caused because of sugar, right? You eat sugar and you get a cavity, or you don't brush your teeth and you get a cavity. There's a lot more to it than that. So let's talk about that just a little bit. So first of all, what does the sugar do? Why does it matter if we eat sugar? Well, if we eat sugar, sugar is in our mouth. The bacteria in your mouth eat the sugar as well. They love sugar. And when they eat the sugar, they actually excrete. For kids, I say they poop out acid, basically. And so their byproduct of eating sugar is acid. And that acid, if it sits on your tooth, will pull the minerals out of the tooth. I will tell people an example a lot of people have seen before is if you pour Coke, like Coca-Cola, on the terminal of your battery on your car, it'll eat away like all the corrosion. Or if you put a quarter in a bottle of Coke or a glass of Coke, it'll literally eat away the metal. So acid will eat away things. It will eat away minerals too. So that's how a cavity forms, is the acid sits here and it literally eats away the minerals in your tooth, because the enamel that you see, the outside of the tooth here, is made of something called hydroxyapatite, and it is the mineral that your teeth are made of. So now let's go back to 1930s, 1940s, when they started saying, well, how could we prevent cavities? Let's use fluoride.
Yeah.
Well, guess what fluoride does? Fluoride does harden a tooth. It changes that enamel crystal. It changes the crystal out here and it makes it harder and more brittle. Well, here's the problem with fluoride. Fluoride doesn't just stay in your mouth. It goes everywhere. It also changes bone structure to make it harder and more brittle. Well, is a brittle bone a problem? Very much so. It also interferes with the way your thyroid hormone is activated. And I just literally found a brand new research study from 2024 that shows that fluoride levels impact thyroid levels, lead to low thyroid function. So we don't want our thyroid affected. It also affects our brains, literally the pineal gland, which is kind of the master controller in the brain. There's research studies showing that it leads to lower IQ levels in children. I mean, on and on. I can go on forever.
Right.
So let's go back. When a cavity is forming here, it's because the acid is pulling out minerals. It's not because the acid is pulling out fluoride. So why are we putting something back that wasn't there to begin with? Make sense? Let's just put back what was pulled out to make the cavity, which is this hydroxyapatite, which is the actual minerals. So that's what all of these products are, is they are hydroxyapatite. So it's a tooth powder that you use instead of toothpaste. It's a mouthwash that you use instead of any other mouthwash. And what it's going to do is anytime the minerals are pulled out of your teeth, which is going to happen with just daily eating, you drink a glass of lemon water, it's going to pull some minerals out because it's acidic.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. So every day you're going to put the minerals back in, the minerals that actually came out to begin with. So this is healing cavities, healing and preventing cavities. And we've seen so many people that have gone to the dentist. They've been told, you have like 4 small cavities that we need to fill. And they say, you know what, I'm going to try something. They go home, they do the remineralization powder and the mouthwash, and they go back in 6 months and the dentist says, I actually don't see any of those cavities. They're gone.
Wow.
Because the teeth have been rebuilt. So that's on the outside. We also have a remineralization kit on the inside, which is vitamins and minerals to build the teeth from the inside out too. So my goal is that people never have cavities again. Like, that's my goal, is that we never have cavities ever again, because we're able to strengthen teeth every single day in a way that doesn't allow them to ever get holes and cavities and weak again.
Right. Wow. This is the remineralization powder is actually a replacement for the toothpaste. Is that what I understood?
Yep.
Oh my god! And mouthwash. So I have both. So now I can have one of instead of having toothpaste and mouthwash, I can have one
Well,
thing.
there's a separate mouthwash too that you can have also that also remineralizes teeth, but it also freshens breath, but it improves gum disease, it improves gum health, it improves the saliva flow in your mouth. Like it does all sorts of good things. But a lot of people just use the tooth powder too.
Right.
Yep.
Gosh, Michelle, this is amazing. Yeah, I'm blown away. I can't believe it. I mean, I read the topics, but I wanted to wait for this moment to meet you so you could explain these things here.
Yep.
Now, yeah, my list is very long. So, of course, I'm very familiar with vitamin D and K, and that's very important too, right, for dental health.
Yep. Yep.
So, and I know you have a formula there on your website as well. It's called Bone Formula, and then the gut health supplements, nutrition line supplements, and the elderberry products.
Mhm.
Gosh, I love them too. So we are not finished yet because I have my guided questions here.
Mhm.
So perhaps to summarize, because you probably mentioned that before, but not in a summary way. One of the guided questions here says, what are the three biggest dental contributors to chronic health problems?
Yep. The three are mercury or metal in the mouth, which is how I got sick.
Yeah.
The second one is infection in the mouth. And most people don't understand that root canals, teeth that have had a root canal, are it's actually just a dead tooth, a dead organ that's still in the body, and it attracts bacteria. And most often, a lot of times, those root canal teeth have new infection, and you actually don't have any idea. The nerve's gone, you can't feel it, it doesn't hurt, and that infection spreads throughout your entire body every time you chew.
Oh my
So that's
God.
the second one is hidden infections. No idea it's even hiding there, but underneath teeth that have had root canals. The third one is airway, is actually getting enough air. And people don't even think about that could have anything to do with whatsoever with dentistry, but all sorts of this is an epidemic. People who can't sleep, who don't get enough air at night, they toss and turn, they can't go to sleep, they can't stay asleep, they feel really tired and fatigued when they wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's because the tube that you breathe through here is actually blocked by tissue from the mouth, either tongue or the tissue at the back of the throat. It's all swollen, it doesn't fit inside the mouth, and it falls back and instead blocks where you get air. So that's the third thing that I talk about all the time with patients day in and day out is their sleeping ability, basically, and how that impacts their health and overall just well-being. So those are the big three.
Right. So we didn't talk about that.
Nope.
Yes. I was wondering, like, God, you have so much to teach. You're such a wonderful teacher. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I spoke of summary. Not really. That was like new information. Yeah. So, I was really curious when my dentist, she asked me about the breathing thing. Do you have apnea? Do you breathe well when you're sleeping? And I didn't understand. I was trying to make the connection. What does it have to do with, the
My
health
teeth.
of my teeth? Yeah, it didn't make sense. But then she explained it to me, and that now I know. So yeah, hidden infection, root canal. So I do have a root canal one. And a lot of people do have that, have
A
done
lot of
that.
people do. Yep. Yep.
So what we do in this case was we already have that in place. Is that another surgery?
Maybe. It's the first step is to do what's called a cone beam CT scan, which is a scan to show is that tooth healthy still? And that's the first step.
Yeah.
So cone beam CT scan to see if it's still healthy. If it's still healthy, then you leave it be for the moment and you keep your body healthy. If it's not, if we see new infection at the base of it, I usually recommend to people to have it removed and replaced. We replace it with a ceramic dental implant.
Right. Okay. So that will be the solution for that. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Wow. Amazing. And I'm wondering also if we engage with all the suggestions that you have given today and all the products that you offer, they all look amazing to me. If we start kind of integrating that into our routine for dental health, would that actually stop the progression of infection? Would that cure somehow or heal cavities? I'm wondering if that could be used as a treatment as well, not just prevention, but as a treatment.
For some things, yes. So if the cavity's small enough, still in the outer layer of the tooth, absolutely, we can reverse cavities 100%. By the time you've had something like a root canal, the problem is that the tooth cannot be completely cleaned.
Yeah.
There's still dead tissue, dead nerve tissue, dead blood vessel tissue, and that dead tissue is what attracts the bacteria. So at that point, so far, we've never come up with anything that can correct it once that's reinfected, other than remove it and replace it.
Right. Okay. And I love that you have the free resources and guides on your website. I mean, there's so much you can learn from that alone. I really like the gut health assessment there, because a lot of us don't know really when we are having issues at that level. So that's really good. I want to do that myself. And then you have so many other wonderful resources. The 5 simple keys to a healthy mouth, and then you have how to live life without refrigeration. That caught my attention. Like, is that
Yep,
possible, really? I know we have a
it
little
is
bit of time.
possible.
It is, right, Michelle?
Yep, they need to check out the guide. There's all sorts of information. And that's the whole, be prepared kind of concept is what would happen if your power went out for a week?
Right.
What would you do? So, yep, that's why I have the guide so you can check it out.
God. Yeah, you see, that's just, you stopped me many times on your website, just looking at the books, the cover, the titles. It was just kind of that moment that we just kind of reflect on learning again. Like, oh, wonderful that I didn't. How much do I know about these things? I know nothing, and that's just amazing, amazing, amazing to come across information like this. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate your presence in this world. I usually say reality, but in the world we live in, the physical reality, and everything else in between, you're just such a gift to all of us. I love your presence here too, your patience, throughout this interview. So the
Thank
website
you.
again is livingwellwithdrmichelle.com. And is there anything, Michelle, that you left unsaid that you would like to add to our conversation today?
I don't think so. Just watch for the book coming soon. And it really is the answer for how to stay well. So, coming soon. Sign up for the newsletters and you'll get all the updates on that.
Wonderful. And that's the website is the place to go.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now, Michelle. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.